one of the things that people should realize is that all 18 games in regular season are treated exactly the same. It's not as though game 18 is more important than game 2. At the end of the day, if you finish 12-6, you're finishing 12-6 no matter where those wins and losses came from.
Well, I'm here on the second week of LCS with coverage presented by Omni Slash Talk to Sebastian Park, the head of Clutch Gaming, about how things are going, and specifically a little bit about the ruling that we saw last week against EchoFox. So first off, Sebastian, maybe you can take me through your experience over the course of Sunday, and because you I guess were off site for that, right?
Yeah. So I had stepped off site for a friend's wedding.
Okay.
And so I was watching at the wedding and realizing, hey, we're losing the game. And then we were coming back. The kills were even. The towers were the turrets were a little bit off balance. But like, that's just standing gold. That's free gold to get once we win a team fight. And so I was like, okay, this seems like an okay position. And then suddenly I thought my phone froze, but it was actually the game.
Yeah.
And so the game froze, and that was super unfortunate. We figured it'd just be a chrono break. Every time we played EchoFox, we've had problems with the server, right? Like, servers crash, things don't work out for us. We're like, oh, cool. Nick, I was talking to Nick. Nick said that he was about to just kill Huni. And I was like, no, that seems reasonable. He doesn't have vision of you, and you have vision of him. So that seems doable. And so we're really excited to get the remake done, just keep everyone in the mindset, planning out what to do next. We had some issues with that during the third place match, where like we played a fight the same way we would always play a fight, and EchoFox decided to do something completely differently, and we ended up getting punished for a fight. I don't know if you remember game 3. It was when like we had to like a 2-for-2 trade in the jungle top, and then the game was chrono break back to before then, and then they did different things. So we're like, okay, let's plan for what to do after a break. But then they told us basically that we don't get a new game, and we're very sad.
So you make it sound like the disadvantage for Clutch was not that bad, but I feel like the general perception is that it was a pretty big disadvantage you guys faced. In fact, even in the Riot explanation, they said that no team in the history of League or whatever LCS has ever come back from that strong of a disadvantage.
Yeah, I mean, I think the problem there is it was actually no team in the history of League on this patch came back from that disadvantage, and it was a very specific disadvantage. It was like 10,089, and they're saying all these teams are playing snowballing manner. I mean, look, our complaint to Riot and what we've been very vocal about is just making sure that we have an even application of the rule set. If you're giving us a game loss for this and giving EchoFox a game win, make sure you're consistent about that throughout. But like, FlyQuest did well.
People screaming FlyQuest from the cars driving by.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, look, the rule set was super strange here, right? Like, yes, if you're playing Vladimir or if you're playing a bunch of champions like Brand in the bot lane, it's hard to come back with those champions if you're behind. But we were running multiple marksmen. We had Singed. We had an ability to come. We had Syndra. We had the ability to come back. Which isn't to say we were favored. Like, I don't think that's what anyone's claiming. And is it within Riot's rules to be able to issue adjudications? Yeah, it is. But we're on the competition committee, which is the committee that supports the rule set of Riot Games. And so we have pretty good understanding of the rules, and we just wanted to make sure the referees and the staff knew what the rule was. And our interpretation of the rule, which is still our interpretation, but one contested by Riot, is that historically, the precedent is like, unless you're about to lose, you remake the game. And we thought the language was pretty clear on avoid defeat versus come back and win, right? And so given that language, we're like, okay, it makes sense for us to get a remake here. It sort of sucks for EchoFox. But, insofar as that's the rule set, we wouldn't go by it. They disagree, and that's fine. Like, if they disagree, we don't particularly find it troublesome or meddlesome. It's just a matter of making sure, hey, like, would you guys have done this if this was like week 9 of the LCS? Yeah. Or would you have done this if this was like Worlds Finals? And I think the answer is no, and that, sort of annoys us.
Okay, so your perspective is like, if just to reiterate and clarify, you feel like there was a chance for Clutch to come back,
yeah,
and that the disadvantage was maybe not as bad as it seemed because even from a historical context, because the meta is so different that it might allow for comebacks at a greater degree than normally.
Yeah, I mean, so the big takeaway here isn't my belief in what the comeback mechanics would be. It's more just a function of, hey, how do you know? Citing 131 games isn't large enough of a sample size to give me assurances that you're going to be able to come back. We saw massive comebacks in the last 2 weeks, right? Like we saw the huge goal differential, which was a larger percentage differential comeback between Vitality and who was Vitality playing in Europe?
Sure.
Yeah, I forgot who they were playing exactly, but I watched that game, and Vitality, I think it was maybe Rockcat or something like that. But Vitality came back from way further down percentage-wise. Yesterday, we saw Golden Guardians come back with their funnel strat. Funnel strats have a worse chance of coming back than most strategies, and so we were just look, we just disagreed with the misattribution of statistics and them claiming we couldn't come back, right? Because it's one thing to say, hey, this is a judgment call. We thought you guys were further behind, and so that's why we gave you a game loss. And if that's the way we're going to approach it from, that's fine. Just do it for every game, weeks 1 through week 9. But insofar as they're oh, yeah, no, we're sure from these stats that you guys were going to come back, didn't sit well with us.
Yeah. And you're so besides the statistical decision-making there, you're also concerned that going forward, this precedent, because it is somewhat of a precedent-breaking situation.
First time it's ever happened, yeah.
And you're concerned that this might not be applied the same way in the future. For instance, if you had a TSM versus Cloud9 game in the finals, you might remake that, whereas you wouldn't, or you might remake that even though you didn't do it here, you're saying.
Right. And so that's my consternation. If Riot gives me full assurances, and they've been pretty open about talking to us about through the process, and quite frankly, Chris Greeley, the commissioner, and the referee staff has been pretty open and communicative throughout. But that's just our concern, right? It's a judgment call. So if it's a judgment call, that means it's really hard to make. Yeah. And is it easier to make that judgment call week 1, game 2? Or day 2 of the tournament versus week 9, 18th game? Yeah. I think it is. And that's concerning, because one of the things that people should realize is that all 18 games in regular season are treated exactly the same. It's not as though game 18 is more important than game 2. At the end of the day, if you finish 12-6, you're finishing 12-6 no matter where those wins and losses came from. Yeah. And so that's just our concern.
You mentioned the referee thing. One of the interesting conversations I had yesterday was with Fabivan, who said that basically he felt like the communication could have been better in the moment, where basically they waited around stage, and then eventually the refs came up and said to Clutch, you guys need to get off stage and collect your stuff. And then Echo Fox was so who won? And they're you guys won, and that was it. And they felt like they didn't give very much of an explanation in the moment. I don't know how much you were aware of that, or if you heard too much about that, given that you were off site, but I don't know if you had any thoughts about how all that went down in the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think necessarily that everyone was well prepared to be able to comment fully on that and to take care of that situation. I think we put our players in a really bad spot. I think that's not okay, and that should be rectified next time. And look, judgment calls by referees that are wrong or misaligned or probabilistically incorrect, happen all the time. It happens in soccer, it happens in football, it happens in basketball, baseball, right? I do think that it sort of stuck for our players, and it still stings. A lot of people don't want to talk about it still, and so we appreciate the work they do, and we hope that they fix that process for next time. At the same time, it is the first time it's happened, so maybe I'm more inclined to give them a small pass on that.
Sure, very good. Is there anything that you would say to any of the Clutch fans out there?
Well, thank you for your support. Hopefully, we'll continue to not let our Nexus get destroyed. And we'll continue on the summer split and make a big push for not only ourselves, but also our fans.
Very good. Well, thank you so much, Sebastian, for the interview. Looking forward to seeing what the future holds. Best of luck keeping your Nexus unexploded in the coming couple weeks. For everyone else, you can check out the rest of my coverage of all things esports right here on my YouTube channel. Thanks so much to OmniSlash for the support. I want to talk to you guys a little bit about something personal, a personal event that happened in my life recently. A lot of you might know that I moved out of my old place and into a new place, and that's because my family has expanded. That's right, I'm actually supporting someone else now. And so you know that when OmniSlash supports this, when you hit up my Twitch channel with a Twitch Prime, when you subscribe to this, when that car drives by, that all that stuff is going to supporting not just me, but also Kobe, who lives with me now. You've all heard the rumors about Caster Pay. I got to take care of him. He expects me to pay all the rent, to feed him, to basically do everything. He just sort of plays video games, and then I just have to do everything else. Anyway, so your support helps me take care of my family being Kobe.